Hello, I'm Ben.
And I'm Josh. We're going to talk about how discrimination affects minorities. Myself and Ben, both being Canadian born white males, we are not personally victims of discrimination.
We had personally not considered any of the realities presented to us through research. We have been caught up in our own personal bubble of our privileges and did not notice all of the hardships many minorities must face on a somewhat regular basis.
Even in the process of animating this presentation, we tried to incorporate all races into our slides, but there were only white characters in the software. Even subtle things like this show lack of accommodation for all parties in society, whether they be majority or minority.
We will specifically be looking at workplace discrimination. The most commonly practiced forms of discrimination consist of race, gender, sexual orientation, and both mental and physical disabilities.
These forms of discrimination cause an invisible barrier that keeps minorities from rising to the upper ranks of the corporate ladder, also called the glass ceiling effect. This poses a problem not only because it makes for an unpleasant working environment, but also benefits unsuitable candidates for employment positions.
2011, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission received 45,000 cases of racial discrimination alone, 28,500 cases of gender-based discrimination, and another 26,000 for disabilities. These numbers are staggering, and these leave out the unreported cases inside and outside the workplace.
How could we expect that discrimination would not exist when even the leader of our country is making unjust statements towards minority religious groups, weighing the values of white Canadians over other racial groups? Past Prime Minister Stephen Harper makes a generalizing remark on March 10, 2015 regarding cultural headdresses, portraying them as non-Canadian and going against Canadian values.
Harper asks, why would Canadians allow a practice that conflicts with their beliefs? He says it is not transparent, not open, and, quite frankly, rooted in a culture that is anti-women. This remark was followed by a roaring applause. Even our government believes in practicing acts of unjust discrimination across the country, our country.
Peggy McIntosh writes an article on the privileges invisible to white citizens that are in most cases taken for granted. Although many of the points brought up appear quite harsh, reality is portrayed well. Racism is more than an individual act that is performed, but can be represented on a global scale as well as in the workplace.
As male citizens, we do not have to worry about losing a promotion to someone less qualified. As male citizens, we do not have to worry about feeling unsafe and objectified. As white citizens, we can be pretty sure that an argument with a colleague of another race is more likely to jeopardize her or his chances of advancement than to jeopardize ours.
As white citizens, if we have low credibility as a leader, we can be sure that our race is not the problem. And finally, as non-disabled citizens, we do not have to worry about being talked down to or treated as less useful.
Although this may seem very uncomfortable, discrimination is not something set in stone. We can change society's ways if we put effort towards equality of minorities. Nobody is born thinking poorly of people based on their characteristics. It is a habit formed by observation and also a habit that can be broken.
It is very important to avoid discrimination because it allows for maximization of productivity in not only the workplace, but society as a whole. Also, workers who feel safe and treated fairly will have a higher quality of working life and also a higher level of performance. Without discrimination, it would be ensured that the most qualified will be properly compensated for their efforts.
We as a society need to learn how to give people a chance to prove who they are before we judge them based on their attributes. We need to be more open-minded as people and treat one another equally. We cannot be mindless bystanders of discrimination.
In the end, society today as a whole has done quite well over the last century with cutting down drastically on discrimination. We as Canadians and as global citizens are encouraged to keep working towards totally eliminating this problem.
Created using Powtoon.